right, this is great news. The date has been set. The Inspector General, Michael Horowitz, he anticipates the release of his all-important report. This has gone on 18 months. The date is set for next Thursday, 1 week from tonight, June the 14th. Now, for weeks, we have been predicting that these findings would, in fact, be buried and released when all eyes would be fixed on the president's historic meetings in Singapore. Sadly, I think my prediction was somewhat right, and it's only 2 days after this big summit takes place, and then, of course, this will be released. Now, what has the Justice Department potentially redacted or changed, because they've had it for over 2 weeks now? Did they alter any language? How will the American people, will they get the truth in all of this? Will they be prevented from seeing the truth? In other words, are we really going to get unfettered contents of Inspector General Horowitz's report? Now, make no mistake, next Thursday, right here on Hannity, we will be analyzing that forthcoming report, page by page, on what will be one of the most consequential days in modern history. That's 2 days, of course, after the summit. Sorry, I am suspicious, and I hopefully will stand corrected next week. Now, we do have one good development to report tonight. The Inspector General, Horowitz, is now set to testify before the Senate the Monday following the Thursday release. And, of course, all of this on the heels of what is now a nonstop effort that we have seen by Congress, by the Department of Justice to Congress, to obstruct Congress from doing its constitutional duty, and that is oversight in their investigations. And according to Senator Grassley's office, the DOJ is now refusing to make documents and at least one witness available for their oversight into the FBI's ongoing General Flynn investigation. And add to this the DOJ's constant slow walking of those documents to all the House committees, the House Intelligence Committee, the Oversight Committees. Sarah Carter will tell you all about a huge fight that took place earlier today and how the DOJ has reneged this morning on a previous commitment to supply documents that are related to the Russia investigation. The big battle, it ended up the Department of Justice now adding unprecedented new restrictions on how it plans to brief members of Congress. We're going to have more on this very important story. What we need is, of course, you, the American people, to be able to see it for yourself. And yesterday, we reported on how the Deputy Attorney General, Rod Rosenstein, arrogantly rebuffed Senator Lindsey Graham in his letter demanding to know why the head of the Mueller investigation has not recused himself, given his numerous conflicts of interest, including his key role in that decision to fire James Comey. He's witness number one in that case. And, of course, he was the person that signed off on the third subsequent renewal application as it relates to the FISA warrant, that, of course, spying on a Trump campaign associate. Senator Graham is responding. Let's take a look.
Were you satisfied with the response from the Justice Department to your inquiry about whether Rod Rosenstein should be recused?
No.
Why?
You got a response?
Well, you talked about a counterintelligence investigation. I get that. The question is the obstruction of justice. Is there going to be a serious look at whether or not the president obstructed justice by firing Comey? I don't know how you can have that discussion without calling him as a witness because of the memo he wrote. He's a fine guy. I got nothing against him. I think he's doing a good job. I understand why Jeff Sessions can't do this. I'm really curious as to how Rosenstein could be involved in overseeing an investigation if he's going to be a witness.
We'll have a lot more on this all throughout the show tonight, but first we have another extremely bit of important news to cover. First and foremost, the president's historic impending trip to Singapore, just days away from holding these talks with the North Korean dictator Kim Jong-un, and they are going to talk about the complete and total denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. All of that is on the line. Earlier today, the president gave a preview of this upcoming trip. Here's what he had to say.
I hope the upcoming meeting in Singapore represents the beginning of a bright new future for North Korea, and indeed a bright new future for the world. The denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula would usher in a new era of prosperity, security, and peace for all Koreans, North and South, and for people everywhere. We could absolutely sign an agreement. We're looking at it. We're talking about it with them. We're talking about it with a lot of other people. But that could happen. But that's really the beginning. Sounds a little bit strange, but that's probably the easy part. The hard part remains after that. Maximum pressure is absolutely in effect. We don't use the term anymore because we're going into a friendly negotiation. Perhaps after that negotiation, I will be using it again. You'll know how well we do in the negotiation. If you hear me saying we're going to use maximum pressure, you'll know the negotiation did not do well.
If the summit does go well, will you be inviting North Korean leader Kim Jong-un to the United States?
Well, the answer is yes to the second part of your question, but certainly if it goes well. And I think it would be well received. I think he would look at it very favorably, so I think that could happen. All I can say is I am totally prepared to walk away. I did it once before. You have to be able to walk away. I really believe that we have the potential to do something incredible for the world, and it's my honor to be involved.
And the Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, who's played a very important role in North Korea in these discussions and the lead up to all of this, he weighed in on these upcoming talks. Let's take a look.
The fact that our two leaders are coming to the table shows that the two sides are very serious. The diplomatic model used to date is different from past efforts. Our efforts give us hope that we can find real success where past efforts have fallen short. President Trump is hopeful, but he's also going into the summit with his eyes wide open. We've seen how many inadequate agreements have been struck in the past, and you can be sure that President Trump will not stand for a bad deal.
Joining us now, author of the upcoming bestseller, The Russia Hoax, the illicit scheme to clear Hillary Clinton framed Donald Trump. Fox News legal analyst Greg Jarrett. Okay, he's writing a book. I just found out tonight this is going to be a bestseller, too. They're going to be fighting against each other. The case against impeaching Trump, famed Harvard Law professor Alan Dershowitz. Actually, I think the books are complementary. I would like to do events with both of you.
Happy
and
to
book
do it.
signings. And I think we could do like an hour debate, and then you guys sign books, and I have a beer.
It's a deal. That would
Right?
be great. Happy to do it.
All right, let's go. First, I got to ask you about this whole issue with me. Professor Dershowitz, you did know that I was being sarcastic.
First of all, you had a perfect constitutional right to make the comparison. I may not agree with it, but you have the right to make the comparison with Hillary Clinton. That's a constitutionally protected argument. Obviously, you did it in a sense of sarcasm, saying, look at what she did. Hey, but you won't get away with it if you don't do it. It is absurd. It is ridiculous to see the media.
I have the two best lawyers that will take me on as a client right here. I think I'm pretty safe.
You wouldn't need us.
I know.
I could find you a first-year student who would win that
How
case.
did these people get on air? It's crazy.
Well,
All right.
I suspect that the people who were criticizing you never actually listened to what it is you were saying. I saw this clip for the first time you just played of some guy saying a cease and desist order ought to be had against you. If that guy's a lawyer, he's as dumb as a bucket of hair. Look, the U.S. Supreme Court said in 1988 so famously that satire and parody is protected speech. Sarcasm does not constitute inciting a crime. Those people who are criticizing you for that have no idea what they're talking about legally.
Everybody at home, you just saw why these books are going to be bestsellers. All right. The DOJ, there was a spy, probably two, maybe more, and you believe you're a constitutional attorney. Congress has a constitutional role in oversight, checks and balances, separation of powers. Why won't they turn the documents over?
Well, they should. Look, I'm a civil libertarian who goes back to the anti-war movement when informers were put in the anti-war movement. They were put in the Martin Luther King movement.
Martin Luther King was spied on in a horrific way.
In a horrific way.
That's right.
And so, as a civil libertarian, when you put somebody in a campaign, I want to know why. I want to see the justification. Maybe there is a justification. Maybe it was business as usual. But the American public has the right to know everything about
100%.
that and make our own judgment.
Where are the civil libertarians? This is a scary time. Listen, I am as pro-law enforcement as anybody.
Yep.
I love my mother was a prison guard. My dad worked in probation. It was a big deal. All my family, many of them were police, and two made the FBI, and that was the top of the hill.
Look, I never pass a policeman in the street without thanking
Thank you.
him.
I do the same thing.
always do it. Firemen, policemen.
Love them.
School teachers, people who work hard to give us our protection,
risk
our
their
education.
lives.
I want them to know I appreciate
Good for
it
you.
every day of the week.
And I do the same. All right, so they won't hand it over. Then you got Rosenstein's conflicts, and I'm thinking, they promised they would hand it over, Greg. Why?
Congress has every legal and constitutional right to see these documents. Those who are seeking it actually have security clearance, the Gang of Eight. So there's no valid legal justification for withholding it. And yet, the Department of Justice and the FBI have a long and distinguished record over the last year of concealing evidence, redacting records under national security terms. And then when we find out when they're unsealed, there was no such thing.
What I would recommend, however, is for Congress to immediately write to the Justice Department and say, do not destroy a single draft. We want to see what the original looked like. We want to see every change. We want to know who changed it, why it was changed, and when it was changed.
The Inspector General would have it.
You cannot trust a briefing, as Trey Gowdy seemed to say. They're just telling you what they can get away with, the bare minimum. You have to see the documents themselves.
I've got to go, but your books are so complimentary, and I'm thinking out of the box in the moment here. I would love to do an event with both of you. I think it would be good for the country.